She was young, brilliant, admired, a promising doctor in the heart of Karachi, living what looked like a perfect life. But what no one knew was the torment behind her eyes, the silent threats she faced, and the secrets too dangerous to say out loud. On a stormy August night, she was found shot inside her own home. They called it suicide, but something about the scene felt off, too neat, too fast, too convenient. What began as a personal tragedy soon unraveled into a maze of lies, silence, and powerful names no one dared to speak. If you're ready for a story of betrayal, fear, and a system that protects the wrong side, subscribe now and turn on the bell, because what you're about to hear might never leave your mind. Karachi, Pakistan, a city that never sleeps, but where too many secrets are buried in silence. On August 18th, the calm of an upper-class neighborhood was shattered by the sound of a gunshot. Inside a luxury home, 24-year-old Dr. Alina Farooq was found collapsed in her bathroom, bleeding from the head. Her father called for help, his voice trembling but oddly composed. The ambulance arrived too late. She was declared dead at the hospital. Police arrived shortly after and, without hesitation, labeled it a suicide. But whispers started to spread fast. People who knew Alina described her as strong, joyful, and driven. And those who had seen her in the final weeks knew something was very wrong. The official story was simple. Alina had locked herself in the bathroom and shot herself in the head. But the more investigators looked, the more the cracks began to show. The first red flag? The gun. It wasn't hers. In fact, it was registered under the name of a man she had once dated, Adil Rehman, a wealthy entrepreneur with a reputation for charm and manipulation. Even stranger, there were no gunpowder traces on Alina's hands, no fingerprints on the trigger, no suicide note. The angle of the wound raised eyebrows too. It didn't match the typical pattern of self-inflicted shots, but the police insisted case closed. For them, it was easier this way. Friends of Alina refused to accept the official version. One by one, they came forward, carefully, nervously, revealing a side of her life no one had seen. Alina had been in a controlling relationship with Adil, and after she ended it, he wouldn't let her go. She had confided in close friends, saying she was being watched, followed, even blackmailed. Screenshots of desperate messages surfaced. He said, "If I talk, I'll regret it, and I don't feel safe in my own home." But none of this had made it into the police report. Her closest friend, Sana, tried to speak to the press, but was met with threats and online harassment. Someone wanted this case to disappear. The media caught on, at least briefly. News stations aired segments showing Alina's achievements, calling her a bright light extinguished too soon. But when they tried to dig deeper into the circumstances around her death, producers received anonymous warnings. Suddenly, coverage stopped. Social media campaigns demanding justice were taken down mysteriously, and videos discussing Adil Rehman vanished from major platforms. What had seemed like a tragic suicide began to look like something much darker, a cover-up. And it wasn't just Adil in the picture. Rumors swirled of another man, Bilal Naqvi, a doctor from the same hospital as Alina, who allegedly shared compromising information with her in the weeks before she died. Bilal was the last known person to see Alina alive, apart from her family. According to a leaked chat, Alina had discovered something inside the hospital. Something about the misuse of patient records and prescriptions tied to high-profile names. She had planned to report it, and Bilal had warned her, "You don't know who you're dealing with." 2 days later, she was dead. But when police tried to reach Bilal for questioning, he had already left the city, disappeared. No forwarding address. His family claimed he was on a spiritual retreat. Investigators quietly marked him as a person of interest, but the lead was never followed. Like so many things in this case, it just evaporated. Alina's autopsy brought more questions than answers. Although the bullet wound was fatal, the report hinted at inconsistencies. No gunpowder residue on her skin, no trace of struggle, yet signs of light bruising on her wrists. Too faint to be defensive wounds, but enough to raise alarms. Toxicology revealed a sedative in her bloodstream, strong enough to impair her movement. She hadn't been unconscious, but she wasn't fully in control either. Why would someone take a sedative before committing suicide? Her family, once silent, began to speak, carefully. Her sister hinted that Alina had felt cornered, saying she was afraid, not of death, but of what they'd do to us if she spoke. Her father, Mr. Farooq, initially told authorities that Alina had mental health issues, but as pressure from the public mounted, his tone shifted. He began describing her final days as strange, mentioning visits from unfamiliar men, hushed phone calls, and her increasing paranoia. She had reportedly started locking her bedroom door, even during the day. Her phone was missing, and security cameras in the house had been turned off hours before her death. Who turned them off? No one had the answer. But one thing became increasingly clear. Someone had planned for that day. Whether Alina pulled the trigger or not, she had been silenced long before the shot rang out. The deeper the investigation tried to go, the harder the resistance became. Files went missing. Statements from witnesses were accidentally deleted. 2 detectives who pursued the case aggressively were transferred without explanation. One of them, under anonymity, confessed, "We were warned, not officially, but the message was clear. Drop it, or your family could pay." Internal Affairs declined to comment. Adil Rehman, the ex-boyfriend, went on. A media tour proclaiming his innocence, crying on camera and blaming haters for dragging his name through the mud. He insisted that he loved Alina, that she was mentally unstable, and that he had tried to save her. His crocodile tears only deepened the public's disgust, but one piece of evidence survived, a voice message. Alina had sent it to a friend just 36 hours before her death. In it, she whispered, "They think I don't know, but I do. I know everything. And if something happens to me, it wasn't an accident." That recording circulated like wildfire. Online forums exploded. Activists began protests in front of the police station, demanding an independent inquiry. Hashtags flooded social media, the justice for Alina. Who killed Doralina? Yet even with the public rage, nothing changed. The case files remained sealed. Her parents stopped responding to interview requests. And behind the scenes, fear began to spread like smoke in a locked room. 1 year later, a former nurse from the hospital, Razia, broke the silence. In a secret interview, she claimed Alina had uncovered a connection between the hospital's administration and a network of elite clients using falsified prescriptions for narcotics. Razia believed Alina had gathered proof. "She had files," she said. "She told me she kept copies outside her home in case anything happened. But when investigators searched, nothing was found." Razia went missing a week after her statement. No one knows if she fled or was taken. Some believe she was silenced, just like Alina. Others think she's still out there, hiding, holding on to the truth. Whatever the case, one thing remains undeniable. Alina's death wasn't a tragedy. It was a message. Adil Rehman's behavior grew bolder after Alina's death. No longer hiding in shadows, he posted smiling photos, took international trips, and even started dating again, publicly. His circle of powerful friends remained untouched, and whispers suggested that some of them had deep political ties. Attempts to reopen Alina's case were blocked repeatedly by procedural delays. Lawyers who volunteered to help her family received anonymous warnings. You don't want to end up like her. The message was clear. Justice in Karachi wasn't for everyone, especially not for a woman who dared to stand against people with influence. Alina had become more dangerous dead than alive. One day, an anonymous email reached a local journalist. Attached were 3 documents, all password protected. The sender's address was untraceable. After weeks of decoding, the journalist opened the files, and what he found could have brought the entire network down. A list of names, transaction records, and private conversations, all linked to the hospital, all connected to a chain of prescriptions and patient records modified under false identities. Alina's name appeared on several files, labeled as a threat. But before the journalist could publish, his office was broken into. Computers were wiped. He vanished the next week. The files were never seen again. Alina's mother fell into deep depression. She stopped attending public events and refused to speak to reporters. When asked about her daughter, she would only say she was brave. But bravery costs too much in this country. The home where Alina died was eventually sold, cheaply. The new owners claimed they often heard footsteps at night, even though the hallway camera showed nothing. Some called it trauma, others called it a haunting. But one chilling detail remained. The bathroom mirror, replaced multiple times, always cracked again in the same spot. No one had an explanation, and no one wanted to talk about it. A second autopsy, requested by independent forensic experts abroad, yielded disturbing results. They concluded that the bullet's entry angle was inconsistent with suicide and matched more closely with an execution-style shot. The sedative found in her system had no prescription records. Her medical file had been edited after her death. These findings were submitted to local authorities, who dismissed them, claiming foreign labs lacked jurisdiction. A high-ranking officer was caught on a hot mic saying, "It's too late anyway. She's dead. Let it go." Those 6 words became a rallying cry for her supporters. But the system didn't flinch. In the months that followed, other women in Karachi's medical community began to speak anonymously. They described similar experiences, powerful men who used their influence to manipulate, seduce, and then threaten. One said, "We all knew someone like Alina. The only difference is she didn't stay silent." The case had sparked something. Fear, yes, but also fire. Anonymous groups began sharing information online, piecing together timelines, names, and data points. But each time they got close to exposing something big, accounts were banned, websites shut down. Still, one name kept resurfacing: Project Mercy, a code name Alina had allegedly written in her journal. No one knew what it meant, but it was the last entry she ever made. Project Mercy. Those 2 words became an obsession for a small group of independent investigators. They scoured Alina's social media, her old files, and any public record they could access. They discovered that Mercy was the name of a patient, an orphaned teenage girl Alina had treated several times. The girl had vanished from the hospital records completely, not discharged, not transferred, simply erased. Staff denied she ever existed, but multiple photos showed her with Alina. Even stranger, a hidden note inside one of Alina's medical books said, "If she disappears, they're already coming for me." The note was dated exactly 1 week before her death. The deeper they searched, the more disturbing the pattern became. Mercy wasn't the only missing patient. At least 6 other undocumented cases surfaced, mostly young women with no family. Each had stayed briefly at the same private wing of the hospital. All vanished, without explanation. Those close to Alina believed she had stumbled onto a trafficking ring, masked as medical care, and she had gotten too close to exposing it. One former janitor anonymously stated she was digging too much, asking the wrong questions, the kind that get you followed. He was later fired without notice and has not been heard from since. Alina's medical license was posthumously suspended, an absurd move that enraged public opinion. The board claimed ethical concerns, though never specified them. It was widely seen as a final act of defamation meant to erase her credibility from the official narrative. Her college photos were removed from university archives, her thesis deleted. But the more they tried to erase her, the more her story spread. Underground forums, digital memorials, street art, all began using her face as a symbol of resistance. She spoke. They buried. Became a graffiti slogan across Karachi. The authorities responded by painting over every message, but they kept coming back. 2 years later, another woman came forward, Fatima, a nurse who had once worked closely with Alina. Her face hidden, voice disguised, she shared a shocking claim that Adil and several hospital executives had used patient data to recruit women into a shadow operation, promising money, treatment, or escape. When Alina found out, she tried to help them, especially Mercy. Fatima said the night before Alina died, she was crying in the break room repeating, "They got to her. I'm next." Fatima disappeared days after the interview aired. The news station that broadcast it was fined and later shut down for licensing violations. Some still say Alina's death was a suicide, that the pressure broke her. But the evidence tells a different story. A young doctor with no criminal history, no mental illness, no access to the gun that killed her. Surveillance disabled, witnesses vanished, records deleted, and a list of names too protected to touch. Her story is not just about what happened in that bathroom. It's about what they wanted to hide and how far they were willing to go to bury it. In Karachi, justice is a rare commodity. And for Dr. Alina Farooq, the price of truth was paid in full, with silence. The silence around Alina's death grew thicker as the years passed. Her case file was marked inactive. Her name slowly faded from headlines, and official channels offered no updates. But on the 3rd anniversary of her death, something unexpected happened. A USB drive was left anonymously at the doorstep of a human rights NGO in Karachi. Inside were photos, internal hospital memos, and what appeared to be a hidden camera recording, showing a meeting between 3 senior hospital officials discussing cleaning up loose ends. One of the men mentioned Alina's name explicitly. The footage was time-stamped 2 days before her death. The NGO released a statement, but not the footage. Within 48 hours, their office was raided by unidentified men posing as federal agents. Computers were taken, employees interrogated, and the director of the NGO was arrested on unrelated charges. When finally released, she looked shaken and refused to speak of Alina ever again. The USB had vanished. Its contents were gone, again. People began to believe there was something bigger at play, something untouchable, a network that could erase files, people, even institutions. And at the center of it all, a young woman who had refused to stay silent. One of the investigators who had worked on Alina's timeline, a quiet digital analyst named Imran, vanished in December that same year. He had been compiling a digital map of all known connections. Adil Rahman, the hospital board, police officials, and even offshore accounts tied to shell companies. His apartment was found unlocked, his laptop missing, and his phone turned off. He left no note. The only clue was a sticky note on his fridge. Mercy is the key. No fingerprints were found. Imran's family reported him missing, but the report was never officially processed. Just like with Alina, everything disappeared. Whistleblowers stopped coming forward. Journalists dropped the story. Even friends of Alina avoided speaking her name in public. It was as if the city had agreed to forget her. Yet behind the silence, an underground network had formed. Coded messages, anonymous tip lines, and encrypted archives were circulated quietly. A growing number of people refused to let her story die. They believed Project Mercy was more than a name. It was a blueprint, one that could reveal a system of corruption far beyond Karachi. But they knew anyone who touched it risked the same fate as Alina. Truth in this case was fatal. A breakthrough came when an old hospital hard drive was found at a recycling center. It had been wiped, but partial recovery revealed a hidden folder named Archives M. Inside were psychological evaluations, patient photos, and a confidential memo marked urgent. Dr. Farooq is no longer compliant. We need a permanent solution. The file was dated 3 days before her death. Digital forensics confirmed the hard drive belonged to the hospital's administrative office. No one claimed responsibility. The folder was handed to authorities, who claimed it was fabricated. But independent analysts disagreed. They knew they had found a smoking gun. What they didn't know was who else had seen it. The release of the Archives M folder reignited whispers of justice. Protesters returned to the streets, holding Alina's photo with candles, chanting her name under a heavy Karachi sky. But this time, the response was immediate and brutal. Riot police dispersed the crowd violently, detaining several protesters. Videos of the incident briefly trended online before being deleted by platforms citing community guidelines violations. The message was clear. This case had crossed a line. Now it wasn't just about one death. It was about protecting the machinery that allowed it, and those who pushed too hard were now considered enemies of the state. Adil Rehman had moved on, or at least pretended to. He was now engaged to the daughter of a former senator and opened a new clinic with foreign investors. He gave speeches on mental health awareness and was even nominated for a civic award. To the public, he had reinvented himself. But one journalist managed to get close enough to him for a brief off-record moment. When asked if he feared Alina's ghost might return to ruin him, he smiled and whispered, "Ghosts can't speak when they're buried deep enough." That quote never made it to air. The journalist was fired the same week. A former security guard from the hospital came forward with an audio recording, muffled, distorted, but chilling. In it, a voice that sounded like Adil said, "If she opens her mouth, we both go down. You know what needs to happen." The audio was submitted to a local news outlet, which promised to verify it. The next day, their website went dark. The following day, the guard was found unconscious in a park. He claimed he had been poisoned, but no investigation followed. His family relocated to another city, refusing all interviews. The recording was never heard again. Alina's grave became a quiet place of pilgrimage. Flowers appeared daily, sometimes with notes from strangers. "You were right. Still fighting. We see you." But one day, her headstone was defaced. The phrase, "liar," was spray-painted across it in red. Her family removed it, but the damage lingered. It felt personal, targeted, as if even in death she was being silenced. A few days later, a threatening letter was slipped under her family's door. "Let her rest or join her." The police said it was a prank, but everyone knew better. Someone was still watching, still listening, still warning. A final journal belonging to Alina surfaced, hidden in an old storage box at her university. It was filled with pages of scattered thoughts, drawings, and fragments of fear. One entry read, "If they come for me, tell them I was not afraid. I was angry." Another simply said, "Project Mercy. Names, money, blood." It confirmed what many suspected. She had been building a case. She had known what it would cost, but she did it anyway, not out of recklessness, out of duty. That journal now lives in a sealed archive, unavailable to the public. But its existence proves one thing: Alina Farooq was silenced, not broken. And her story is not over. A former IT technician who worked at the hospital reached out to the underground network anonymously. He claimed he had once been ordered to wipe specific files under a project labeled Mercy Initiative. At the time, he thought nothing of it, just another administrative purge. But when Alina's name surfaced in the news, he connected the dots. He described a digital vault accessible only through biometric login and a remote cloud server routed through foreign IPs. He attempted to recover fragments, but before he could finish, his apartment was broken into. His laptop was gone. He left Karachi the next day and hasn't contacted the network since. Meanwhile, whispers of foreign involvement emerged. Several of the offshore companies tied to the hospital's finances were traced back to tax havens in the Caribbean. Among the transactions were donations labeled humanitarian outreach that coincided with the disappearance of patients from the facility. One watchdog agency began to investigate these links, but within a week, their offices were hit with a massive data breach. Every system was corrupted, emails, backups, even cloud storage erased. The agency's director stepped down and moved abroad, refusing to speak publicly. The message was unmistakable: don't follow the money, don't look too deep. One rainy evening, Alina's younger brother uploaded a short video to a private forum. In it, he sat in a dark room, visibly shaken. "They keep telling us to stop," he said. "But stopping means forgetting her. I won't do that." He revealed that Alina had mailed him an envelope days before her death with no return address. Inside were printed documents and a handwritten letter. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Don't let them turn me into a lie." The documents showed prescription fraud, internal emails, and one chilling image, a blurry CCTV still of Mercy looking directly at the camera, with fear in her eyes. The image of Mercy reignited the online movement. Artists began to draw her face alongside Alina's, two symbols of a system that preys and silences. A mural appeared overnight on a wall in Sadar town, Alina with a stethoscope, Mercy beside her, and behind them, a wall of faceless men in suits. The mural was painted over within hours, but it reappeared in another part of the city days later. Then again, it was a message no one could fully erase. Alina had become a martyr, Mercy a mystery, and together they were a story too, dangerous to let live and too powerful to kill. International pressure began to grow. Human rights organizations issued reports referencing the Karachi doctor case as a symbol of institutional suppression. Pakistan's official response? No wrongdoing found. But in private diplomatic cables unearthed by a whistleblower, foreign embassies expressed deep concern over systemic corruption in Karachi's medical and legal institutions. One cable read, "The case of Dr. Farooq is not an isolated incident, it is a window. Yet even with mounting evidence, no one acted, no one intervened, because those who could were connected, and those who cared were silenced." A final attempt to reopen Alina's case was filed by an international legal team. They presented all collected evidence, forensic reports, digital trails, testimonies, and that haunting last letter. But when the hearing date arrived, the courtroom was empty. The judge recused himself last minute. No prosecutor appeared. No defense was needed. The case was delayed indefinitely. The files were sealed again, this time under national security grounds. The courtroom lights dimmed, the guards locked the doors, and the silence fell like a verdict. For the system, the case was over. But for those watching from behind screens, from alley walls, from across oceans, the story was only beginning. That same night, an encrypted video surfaced online. It showed a masked figure holding up Alina's journal, flipping through pages, marked with symbols, names, and dates. The caption read, "You buried her, but not the truth." Within hours, it went viral, reaching millions before being removed. Backup copies spread through private channels. Alina had become a digital ghost, her voice echoing through hidden networks, unedited footage, and forbidden files. Her truth wasn't held in courts or newsrooms anymore. It lived in whispers, in shadows, in people who refused to forget. Every deletion made her louder. Every silence made her scream. The hospital where it all began was eventually rebranded, sold to an international investor group. A new name, a new logo, a fresh coat of paint. But those who had worked there knew the walls hadn't changed. The elevator that Mercy last used still shuddered. The bathroom where Alina was found stayed locked. No one wanted to enter. And those who did swore it felt wrong. Cold, still, watched. Nurses claimed they heard sobbing at night, even when no patients were on that floor. The past wasn't gone. It was waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to listen. Today, if you walk through Karachi and mention her name, some people still flinch, others lower their voices. A few pretend not to hear. Alina Farooq has become a question with no answer, a chapter ripped from history, a wound the city was ordered to ignore. But if you look closely, her initials still appear in alleyway graffiti, in encrypted forums, in the tear-stained journal of a brother who won't let her vanish. Justice never came in a courtroom. It came in the refusal to be silent, in the rebellion of memory, in the power of a name whispered after midnight. So why did Alina die? Not because she was weak, but because she was strong in a place where strength gets punished. She died because she saw too much, asked too many questions, tried too hard to protect the voiceless. She died because silence is cheaper than truth in Karachi. And yet, she's still speaking. Through files, through fear, through fire. And maybe, just maybe, someone listening now will pick up where she left off. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this video. Because if we stay silent, they win again.